Hey, Husker fans, welcome back to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel and our podcast. I'm Chris Peterson, and I'm here once again with my co-host Danny Gillette of the also of HuskerBigRed.com, and we're back here to talk with you about the commitment of Daniel Kaelin. We didn't do our normal show here on Monday; we had some other stuff kind of going on, so we're a little bit late in the week. But it was a great weekend for the Huskers. We got Danny Dimes committed as part of the 2024 class, and what do you think about this move for Nebraska? I know we're a few days late, Danny, but still a big commitment for the Huskers.
I think it's a huge commitment because we were talking about, I think last Monday, oh man, like what are they going to do now that they missed out on Dylan Raiola? They need to get the ball moving with a 2024 quarterback. And well, they got the ball moving and things moved pretty quickly on the Daniel Kaelin front. I mean, you saw some of our work on Husker Big Red. There was a crystal ball prediction on Friday. Then there was another crystal ball prediction from Will Turboff. And then Saturday came and it was like, boom, Daniel Kaelin's in the fold now, and this is absolutely big for Nebraska. I think that having Jeff Sims on the roster to kind of hold down the position for the maybe next season and the season after, I believe, will help with Daniel Kaelin's development. They don't necessarily have to rush him into the thick of things, and they get a very good passer in Kaelin. He throws the ball in tight windows, makes quick decisions with his reads, and can obviously throw the football. Was Nebraska's uh, all-time passing yards leader in the state's history. So there's definitely some talent there. And people were saying, "Oh, it's hard to get excited," and we go from Dylan Raiola to Daniel Kaelin. Well, guess what? In my opinion, it would have taken a lot for us to go to get Dylan Raiola. So I mean, it's not like Daniel Kaelin is a downgrade in terms of talent, but anybody who thought that we were actually going to land Dylan Raiola, I thought we had a shot, but I was still still very uneasy about the prospects of landing him. And I think as much as we were, pushing for Dylan Raiola, he's obviously, I think, going to go to Georgia or USC or those types of programs. He ended up going to Georgia, and we got Daniel Kaelin. So I still think this is, not a pickup to kind of be down about, despite all the Dylan Raiola stuff, because it's going to take a little bit to build a program before we can get, five-star quarterbacks and the like.
I mean, anybody that's down about the commitment of Daniel, they're absolutely insane. If you're not excited about this commitment, then you don't know about recruiting, and you don't know what you're talking about. I'll
I
just
saw a
flat
lot
out
of
say that.
people kind of down
I
about it,
mean,
I got to say.
yeah, they're insane. They're absolutely insane. Daniel Kaelin is a big time commitment. He's ranked 25th overall. He just got moved up by 24/7 Sports. And the fact of the matter is, if he didn't play in the state of Nebraska, he would already be a 4-star quarterback. I guarantee you that. It's hard to get that fourth star in Nebraska. In 24/7 Sports, and they do take the recruiting rankings. I mean the state and all that stuff is factored into your recruiting rankings. So, I mean,
Yeah.
and also it should be noted, as Scott reported, I think it was yesterday, but Daniel Kaelin just got invited to the Elite 11 finals. So I mean, this dude can play. I mean, he absolutely can play. I know he's not Dylan Raiola, and yeah, maybe Dylan Raiola might be the next Caleb Williams, and I'm not saying anything about him. Obviously, he was the top target on the board, and I mean, even Nebraska was honest, about that with Daniel Kaelin. And I think that's why they got him. I think Matt Rule, he didn't, because kids can smell fake a mile away. You know what I mean? Like, they know when you're not being honest with them. Like, Daniel Kaelin's not stupid. He knows how good Dylan Raiola is. He knows what the rankings are. You know what I mean? Like, he's not going to take that as a slight, and he didn't. Just being, but when kids are going to make it a slight is when you tell somebody something and then you do something different behind their back. You know what I mean? And Matt Rule never did that. He told Daniel Kaelin and his coach, hey, we're going after Raiola, and then if that doesn't happen, we're coming after you hard. And it sounded like basically the second that commitment was made, Foley was on the phone, getting out there and seeing if Daniel Kaelin was interested. And his love for Nebraska is what saved this recruitment too. You know what I mean? It had, obviously, I think the way that Rule approached it, and the being upfront with them about it, and telling them how much that they liked him. But hey, we have a chance to get this big time quarterback. We're going to take this shot at it. But I think that honest approach and the fact that Daniel Kaelin just wanted to be a Husker. I mean, that commitment video, it really explained it all. I mean, this was his dream school. And I think for that reason, too, I mean, this kid is a talented quarterback. I felt like he was going to be a starting quarterback in the SEC if he stuck with Missouri, and I feel like Nebraska did really well to get him. And I think it's just going to work out perfectly going forward. I think he's the perfect guy for this Matt Rule program to kind of get jump started beyond Jeff Sims, who I do think has a chance to start for 2 years, but I would not be shocked if he has a great year at Nebraska and ends up leaving, for the NFL draft a year early. I do think that's possible, but in the ideal scenario, I guess he would stick around. He play really well, stick around for another year, and then Danny Dimes can take over in 2025.
And look, people were giving him a hard time. I saw on some comments like, "Oh, he decommitted from Missouri already." Like, what was he supposed to do? Like, not commit to any school while Nebraska, played the waiting game with Raiola? He needed to be ready for, you know, whatever was thrown his way too. And so to kind of just play the waiting game on his part and not at least commit to a school in case Raiola, worked out for Nebraska, I mean, that would be a poor move on his part. So I'm not upset at all that he decommitted from Missouri. He needed a place to go, and that's where he committed at the time. It's better, and I'm sure he's getting advice or he got advice from everybody. It's better to commit, to a school and at least have a plan in place than to hope and wait and see, oh, maybe this school is going to finally offer me and stuff. Because then, with the transfer portal and everything and kids coming in left and right, you've kind of screwed yourself if you hold out and hope for one school and not at least have a backup plan.
Yeah, I don't blame him at all, and
No.
I'm sure the Missouri people don't like how it went down, but that is what it is. I mean, it's just that.
Welcome to recruiting in 2023.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's Nebraska was always going to mean that offer and stuff was always going to mean more to Daniel Kaelin than any other program. You know what I mean? So Nebraska always had the inside track here. It just was a matter of, was he still going to be receptive, after they basically said, "Hey, you're not our number one guy," but there's always been that interest. I mean, with Matt Rule, he said to Daniel Kaelin, I mean, this is what Daniel Kaelin told me in an interview, like, "Hey, we don't want you to leave the state of Nebraska." Now that was before, Dylan Raiola reopened his commitment and all that other stuff. But, I still think that pretty much holds true. And, when you look at Daniel Kaelin, I just think he's a really good fit. I mean, he's not, going to be Jeff Sims in terms of running the running the football. I don't think he's a statue either. But, I mean, the guy's accurate. He's on the 7-on-7 kind of stuff that they do in the spring. I mean, he's got a lot of, positive vibes. Like I said, his 24/7 rating just went a little bit higher. If he goes and performs well at the Elite 11, like I think there's a really good chance that Daniel Kaelin eventually gets upgraded to a 4-star. But beyond that, just looking at the board, I mean, I right now I think in the top 50, like 24/7 composite quarterbacks, there's like a handful that aren't uncommitted. I mean, Kamari McClellan is one of them, and he's kind of interesting because I'm not sure if he's still taking his visit, that June weekend or not. But the board, I mean, it was the pickings are slim. And so if it wasn't Daniel Kaelin, it was going to be a project. Like, not all 3 stars are rated equal. He's a high rated 3-star, and he's the guy that has like, long-term starter potential. His comparison is Kirk Cousins from 24/7 Sports. So, I mean, the drop off from him to like Kamari McClellan, not to insult him in any way, but it's a pretty big kind of drop off, I think. Whereas McClellan, you're like, maybe he could become a starter someday, if it works out. But Daniel Kaelin's a pretty polished high school quarterback for being a 3-star rated guy.
Absolutely. And, I think, like you kind of alluded to, McClellan's a bit more of a project. I still think he's a very good football player. I'm not sure if he's coming in that first weekend in June anymore either. It wouldn't surprise me if he didn't. But at any rate, now we see what other dominoes fall with the Kalen commitment. Does Hall come? Davon Hall come? Does, Isaiah McMorris come? I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what happens here. And, I saw McMorris quote tweet Daniel Kaelin with the eyeball emoji. So take that for
Yeah.
what it means. And in today's age of social media, you could say, "Oh, it's just a tweet," and blah blah blah. But Twitter and all these social media platforms now play a huge role in recruiting, especially when it comes to peer recruiting. So you never know. And now I feel better about Nebraska's quarterback situation moving forward, and I'm excited to see what Kalen can bring to the table because, in my opinion, if you don't have the greatest running ability, you need to have a good arm, or else you're kind of stuck in the middle as a quarterback. And Kaelin has the really good arm, so I'm excited to see with that wide receiver room and the talent in there, like what can he do with that group? Because that's a special group, and I'm not. And then I'll let you talk because I know I've talked a lot. I'm not comparing him to any specific quarterback, but I mean, when you look at the Alabama quarterbacks, for example, they're not the fastest runners, but they have, you know, a good arm and good talent around them. And they can get away with, winning national championships with a good group of wide receivers and good tight ends and things like that. So I could see a similar situation where, Nebraska has a strong armed quarterback in Kaelin and a really good wide receiver room to make Kaelin even better. So I'm not certainly mad about that either, due to the fact that we haven't really had a loaded wide receiver room, and I can't remember how long.
Yeah, definitely. I think the with McMorris and Davon Hall, I definitely think this is going to help with their recruitment. And I think the other thing it should be noted. I'm blanking on the name of their head coach, but he did one of the Husker podcasts, and I'm sorry I don't remember which one off the top of my head, but he they put out kind of like a teaser video, and he was talking about McMorris and Hall, and he said like a month ago or so. I wouldn't have thought that those guys were both going to go, red is what he said, but that Garrett McGuire had made up a ton of progress. And I don't know the exact quote, but basically it was, praising Garrett McGuire. So, I mean, these recruitments were already turning around, with the official visits on June 23rd, because there were some other crystal balls, for some other programs. And I think Nebraska had, put itself back in the pole position, and that now getting Daniel Kaelin, I think, is only going to strengthen that. I know that there's the wide receiver numbers. Sean Callahan, I think, brought this up in one of his things, but I'm not worried about the numbers at all. You take these two in-state receivers. Both of these guys are top 5 in the state, so you take them. You don't think twice about it, and then you go hard as hell after Gatelin Bear because that guy's an absolute freak. I mean, he ran a 10-15 in the. I mean, that's unbelievable. That's faster than Tyreek Hill in high school. I mean, this guy literally is Tyreek Hill. He is freaking unbelievable. He's 6'2", 180 pounds. Like, he's going to be a first-round pick someday. I am worried. He's going to Michigan the June 23rd weekend. I think Michigan's the number one contender. Oregon's in the mix, and then it was TCU and Boise State. But I really feel like this is a Nebraska, Michigan. Never count out Oregon because Phil Knight's got a crap ton of money. So it's hard, but I feel like if they can get these two in-state guys, make that run at Gatelin Bear, and then honestly, not to go on another side note, but Carter Nelson, I think that the idea Carter Nelson's not going to Georgia. He's not. They've taken 2 tight ends this week. He said Dylan Raiola's not going to have an impact. I mean, they took the number 4 tight end, so I really don't see Georgia taking 3 tight ends. So I think that Nebraska in the Carter Nelson sweepstakes is also in a better position, and he's visiting June 23rd, the same weekend as it's a master class from Matt Rule, getting this commitment and then getting Daniel Kaelin on the 23rd. It's perfect strategy.
As unorchestrated as the quarterback plan may have looked just a couple weeks ago, now you see all the
Yeah.
dominoes starting to fall into place. Yeah, it's kind of weird. I mean, that's why I said, last week, that's why you said last week too, never count anything out when it comes to recruiting, because, it can change in an instant. And, I think I'd be really excited to land Carter Nelson. I mean, he's a freak. Galen Bear is an absolute speedster. I mean, see, that's what I mean. You take a quarterback and you surround him with, top quality talent to make his life easier. And then you have a coaching staff that is very offensive line focused, and that works even better. So, I mean, that sort of offensive cohesiveness and the desire and want, and quite frankly, the ability to get talent to help the quarterback is not something we've had in a coaching staff in quite some time. And so I think Matt Rule is doing a good job of kind of making sure that all the pieces line up, and helping his quarterback succeed.
Yeah, it could be an exciting class. I mean, getting, it just to me, it just seems like it just takes so much pressure off this coaching staff to not like, what are we going to do? I mean, and that they probably weren't. That's probably more of an external thing, but Like, to me, it just answers a lot of questions. I am wondering though, would Nebraska take two quarterbacks with Kamari McClellan? I mean, they didn't take any last year, so I'm wondering if maybe they will take that visit just to see. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how that kind of develops, but I also wouldn't be surprised if he just didn't come. It sounds like Clemson, who's missed on like so many quarter. I mean, Nebraska's missed on one top target. Like Clemson's been, they were in on Dylan Raiola, Jaden Davis, Walker. I mean, there's like so many quarterbacks that Clemson has missed on now. There was just a 3-star that they went in on hard that went to Penn State. So I think that they're going to end up getting Kamari McClellan just because like they're so desperate for a quarterback right now that like their Clemson will probably be pushing as hard for him as like Nebraska did for Kaelin. So Nebraska hasn't even offered yet. So that's kind of how I think that that's going to play out. But it would be interesting to see if he does take that visit because I mean, yeah, Nebraska probably could take two quarterbacks in this class, and I don't think that would probably bother Daniel Kaelin that much.
No, because I think McClellan, he has a lot of raw athletic talent, but I still think he's a little bit away from being a,
Yeah,
starting
he's got a
quarterback.
huge arm, but
Yeah. It's all about trying to rein that in and like working on the finer techniques of throwing and things like that. But
yeah.
let me ask you this, because we might have touched on this last week or Friday, but I mean, Georgia has a very full quarterback room. Do you see any one of those guys transferring out at any point, or in your opinion, do you think that one of them will? Because that is still a pretty good quarterback room, and I wonder if Raiola is comfortable, maybe sitting or doing, doing just biding his time because from just the room perspective, you know, it is a crowded room with talented quarterbacks. They're not slouches either.
Yeah, it is one of the most talented rooms in college football for sure. I think it's interesting because it's like they do kind of have a three-way competition going on right now. Um, it just from what I follow for on the national site that I work for. Carson Beck, I think, is gonna win the starting job. He was really good in the spring game, and then you've got Brock Vandegrift, who is a five. He was a 5-star, and I think 21 or 22. I'm trying to. I can't. I think 21, and so he was supposed to be like the next guy, and he just hasn't kind of taken that step. A lot of people thought he was going to transfer this spring, and Georgia was able to keep him. And he said he was going to, fight for the job. So I think I think one of those two guys is going to be gone after this next season, whether it's Carson Beck or Brock Van, whoever doesn't win the job this year. And that's the thing with Georgia too, is like 2 years ago, they started, Stetson Bennett and that other, I can't even remember the other guy's name now. Used to be a 5-star quarterback, but they started like multiple guys and still won the national championship. So it's like, I feel like Georgia could like, not even have like a solid starter this year, and they probably could still just like roll to the playoff because they're so freaking good. But I do think that somebody's coming out of that room once Dylan Raiola steps in there, and I think it's just going to be a similar situation, like where if kind of what you got going on in Texas with Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning, like I think Raiola's going to come in next year. Carson Beck's probably going to be like established as the starter, and he'll probably be the guy for like one more year. But it could be a Trevor Lawrence situation too, where because I remember Clemson had a pretty solid starter when he went there. I can't remember the guy's name, Taj Boyd or something. No, that's not it. Anyways, sorry, Taj Boyd.
Kelly
But
Bryant.
yeah, that's it. That's it. Yep. And he didn't play very. I mean, Clemson like wasn't bad, but they started off like they won a few of their games, but he wasn't playing well, and they threw Lawrence in there, and they won the national championship. So, I do think Dylan Raiola will get on the field fairly quickly, but there is going to be some talented quarterbacks, transferring out of like Georgia, Alabama this fall. Once they get everybody in camp, they're going to have 5 quarterbacks that were ranked in the top 125 in high school. Like you're not keeping all those guys
Must
forever.
be
You know what I
nice,
mean?
huh? Must
Yeah.
we're scrambling for Daniel Kaelin, and he's a very good quarterback, but then you say 5 quarterbacks in what, the top 100 you said?
Top
Top
125. Yep.
top
In their
125? I
respective
mean,
classes.
man, it must be nice. I mean,
Yeah.
hopefully we'll get there one day. I might be in the ground when that happens, but, it just goes to show that when you build a solid program and a solid foundation, recruits will want to come and be a part of it. And when you sell them honesty and a vision and a plan, that goes a long way too. And I think Matt Rule is trying to build that and, you know, being honest to Kalen and his, high school coach, I think that's a part of it. I mean, it's all about, just being real with these recruits and, trying to get them to buy in to what you're trying to sell and making sure that you have a solid plan that you're selling too, not just some hodgepodge thrown together stuff. So, I mean,
And yeah, I think it's important too, because like, what if Dylan Rayola doesn't work out at Georgia? Like he enters the transfer portal. You wanna always have that relationship because you just never know what's going to happen. I mean, yeah, Justin Fields went to Georgia and then transferred. I mean, he was like the best quarterback recruit they'd probably ever gotten, and he only played there for 1 year because they had another kid there. So I mean, you just never know what's going to happen. Like you don't know if maybe I don't want to speculate on anything, but just saying, like you always want to, especially now in the transfer portal, it's more important than ever to not burn your bridges with any recruit. Like even like if Carter Nelson decides he's going to Notre Dame, like you're not going to burn your bridge there because you just never know what's going to happen. So you always want to keep that door open and for the transfer portal. And that's kind of a segue. We should talk about Nebraska added a transfer offensive tackle. I think it's Tyler Knack. I don't. This is the one thing I don't like about the podcast is I feel like I'm always butchering people's names. So
I
it's
believe it's Knack. Yes.
okay. That's what I mean, I just don't know how else you would say it, but yeah, what you broke down this commitment the other day for HuskerBigRed.com, Danny. And what are the Huskers getting here in the former Utah offensive tackle?
A big guy, 6'8", I think over 330 pounds. I mean, this is a guy that, could desperately fill a void on the offensive line. They have players at the position, sure, but once injuries hit and once the games start getting more physical and the wear and tear starts setting in, a guy like Knack could be able to come in and play right away. And someone said that it would be you know a a backup plan for one of the linemen. I can't remember off the top of my head, but bringing in a guy like Knack, who's very physical, a very sturdy lineman. I mean, line depth is important, and Nebraska needed another lineman. It probably wasn't the name that we were all thinking of, but at the same time, it fills a need. And he was a former three-star recruit. So the one thing I'll say about linemen is that we can argue about stars until we're blue in the face, but in my opinion, and I don't know if you share this, when it comes to linemen, stars don't necessarily matter as much because I know a lot of really good three-star linemen that are in the NFL and have played well on big-time college programs.
I agree. I don't think that the stars matter quite as much because if you get the right coach and you get the right program, they basically can, look for certain traits in guys, you know what I mean? And they find traits and they can develop those. And so I do think that there is, a big part of that. And hopefully, praying, to whatever God there is out there that Donovan Rayola can become like that technician and become that coach that, takes that 3-star and gets him to the NFL. And I'm really hoping that Matt Rule can help his development too. I mean, I think that that's one thing with Matt Rule that is really underrated is just the way that he's going to help his coaches get better. Because I don't think that Scott Frost did that. You know what I mean? I mean, the players weren't getting better and the coaches weren't getting better. I mean, we've talked about, Mario, and I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but
Verduzco,
yeah, that moron, and all these other guys,
Greg Austin.
yeah, Greg Austin. I mean, but it's still that like if you're the head of a company, right? Like it's your job to professionally develop the people under you, whether they're your assistant coaches or players or whatever. I mean, if you're the manager at Walmart, right? Like you're responsible for the professional development of the employees that work under you. And Scott Frost just was not a good manager of people. Whatever he knows about football, he's not a good manager of people. And I think that Matt Rule, I think you're going to really see guys like Garrett McGuire and Donovan Rayola and people on the staff develop and improve. And I think that's going to be an area that's going to help our recruiting because they're going to be getting players better. They're going to get better as coaches, and they're going to help our recruits get better. And eventually, I think it's all going to build this really good infrastructure at Nebraska because it's all there in place. I mean, the facilities are amazing. The support from Trev Alberts, and it's all there. Like it's all there to win. We just got to get the right head. We just had to get the right head coach because I believe 100% that Matt Rule is the right guy for this program. Just like Daniel Kaelin, man. Like I believe it. I'm a full believer that Matt Rule's going to do great things there. I don't know exactly what that's going to mean, but we're going to be proud of this football program in a very short period of time. I believe that.
I'm curious to see the development of Bob Wager because he doesn't come from the traditional college coaching background, but he's been a part of several All-American games, and he's well known in the Texas area. He's highly regarded, as is Rule in the Texas area high school circuit. So I'm excited to see what he brings to the table as far as coaching because I think he is a smart football mind. And just because a guy like Garrett McGuire is young or Bob Wager doesn't necessarily have college coaching background, doesn't mean they're bad coaches. I mean, it just means that maybe they've gone undiscovered or they were the ones waiting for that, big break. And now Wager will have a chance to show what he can do. Um, so yeah, go ahead.
And just on your point too, I mean, Matt Rule has already shown he can take these guys, and I mean, Joey McGuire, Garrett McGuire's dad, basically did the same thing that Bob Wager did when Matt Rule took over at Baylor. Came from a high school program. Was an assistant coach there. Now he's the head coach at Texas Tech, and they're doing a hell. They just made a bowl game. They're recruiting the heck out of Texas, so that's a path. Also, I'm blanking on the guy. He's at Texas. San Antonio was another guy that joined Matt Rule's staff, I think, from the high school ranks. And, he's a hot name now. And he actually, Nebraska, had some interest in him. And I think that if things had gone, if Rule wasn't an option and some other guys, he might have been a candidate. I'm totally blanking on the name. But anyways, those are two guys that, came to Matt Rule's staff without being, without having basically any college experience. And now they're college head coaches and they're both, doing really well. So I think that just shows and Jeff Collins. I mean, there's a bunch of guys already that have coached under Matt Rule that have gone on to be head coaches. Now, I know Jeff Collins got fired, but you know what I mean? It's still, the point still remains the same, that the development not only of players is going to get better, but I think the development of coaches is going to get better. And that's going to really help this program out moving forward.
And look, I've always said I would rather a coach move on to a better job because he's, overqualified for the one he has here than to be fired mid-season. You know what I mean? So I think the development part of the program comes not only in terms of making sure the players get to the NFL, but that assistant coaches also have a chance to really kind of expand their resumes and spread their wings. And I think this is a program in Nebraska that's really kind of needed that for a while because the other part of it too is, say Garrett McGuire goes on to some bigger program and stuff, and the announcers on TV say, "Oh, Garrett McGuire came over from Nebraska. This coach came over from Nebraska. This player drafted out of Nebraska." I mean, getting that national exposure can also only do good things for recruiting as well.
One last note I did want to make on recruiting before, we kind of wrap that up. Running back recruiting to, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but things aren't going well there. Keywan Lacey, basically Nebraska had two guys in for visits. The kid from Bishop Gorham, I'm blanking on his name.
Kapana,
Capona, yeah. So he got projected to Michigan this week. Keywan Lacey got projected. I can't remember where, Ole Miss actually.
yeah.
So both of those guys were supposed to visit this month on official visits. I think they were the top two guys on the board. Nebraska's now offered Hunter Andrews, a running back from Texas, that's going to be taking an official visit. So I think that shows kind of where things are going. It doesn't mean that those recruitments are over, especially the Capana one. I think there's some moving parts with Michigan in their running back room, but it does seem like Nebraska's suffered, maybe some setbacks in the running back room, but hey, it is what it is. You're not going to bat 1,000.
And secretly, you love the news of Micah Kapana going to Michigan, but not on a Nebraska.
Well, it's interesting actually because I don't know that Michigan, I don't know how many running backs they're going to take, and they've already got a top 100 running back, and they're actually in the mix with another 5-star guy. So I'm actually wondering if that means that they're not in as good a spot with the 5-star kid. So that's where I'm not sure. Is like if Michigan gets that other 5-star back, I don't know if they would take Capana. So that's it's a Steve Wiltfong special, and no one else has followed up with it. So I'm not sure. I don't know if I trust it that much. But the
Yeah.
Keywan Lacey to Ole Miss kind of worries me. But I mean, it is what it is. I just I felt like that they had a chance to get one of those two guys. I still think they do have an outside shot at Nathaniel Frazier, but they're going to have to start the season like really, really well, for that to happen. So,
And they're
but
gonna have to make sure that nobody gets injured in the running back room this season, because
yeah,
there is depth, but Irvin is coming off of not being fully healthy, and And then you have Anthony Grant, of course, but
Ramir Johnson out of jail finally, apparently.
maybe, that's what they
Proverbial
said.
jail.
That's what
You
they
know,
said last year. That's what they said.
yeah.
Oh, Ramir Johnson's going to be a big weapon, and then
Ramir Johnson's gonna be Brian Westbrook, and then never like what was that, dude?
yeah,
I don't
that
understand.
was
Like
that
Mark,
was a Mark Whipple special. That was
that was so stupid.
that's what that was. That was a Mark Whipple special, and
So, like, I hate when coaches talk up guys like that. Like, why drop? Like, that's like that dude was in a bunch of Pro Bowls. Like, I mean, why drop that comparison and then never play him like that? Why even say that? Be like, yeah, that guy sucks. I'm not playing. You know, I just was so weird.
then he dropped a wide open touchdown. What would have been a wide
He
open
did.
touchdown against Illinois, and that probably didn't help his case. But
No,
when you get zero snaps and you're all of a sudden thrust into a role, like I don't blame him
and
at all for that either.
every time he ran it pretty good. You know, so I feel like he's gonna be a sneaky kind of good piece this year. You know, it's interesting though. I don't think Nebraska's gonna have 1,000-yard rusher. I know this is another tangent, but I think that like Gabe Ervin and Anthony Grant are gonna be like 1A, and I don't feel like there's gonna be much difference between those two guys. Like I don't even know if I mean one of them might technically be the starter, but I feel like they're both gonna get about the same amount of carries. I don't know. That's my thought.
850 is my goal. Is my
Yeah, I
guess
could
in
see
terms of
that.
yards for Grant, which isn't bad at all. I mean, if you have
I think
a
they're both
800,
going to be in that range, you know.
yeah, if you have two, like let's say 850-yard rusher, 500-yard rusher as a number two, that is
Yeah.
pretty good. I'll take that all day. So and then you talk about all the weapons out, wide receiver, and you don't have to solely rely on the running backs. So
And the defense is going to be I've actually am like quietly confident about like I'm excited to watch the defense this year and like I haven't been excited to watch a Nebraska defense in a long time. Like it's
why
just
is
been
that? It's just been excitement everywhere. I can't imagine why.
yeah, so
I'm
anyways, this is going to be a fun season, I think.
I'm excited to
Hopefully.
see Thomas Fedoni because I felt so bad for him on the injury front, and now that he's healthy, I'm excited to see what he could do. And I
Dude,
mean,
did you see the pass? Did you see Daniel Kaelin throwing passes to him the other
I
day?
did.
Oh
Ugh,
my God, Thomas
I did.
Fedoni looks just like I'm like, as long as that knee holds up, like this dude's gonna be all Big Ten. I mean, he looks like an absolute freak. I mean, he looks so fast. It's just I'm very excited about this upcoming season for Thomas Fedoni.
It also doesn't help that Brock Bowers was picked in front of him, I believe, if I remember. Was it in front or behind?
I think in front, yeah. I think Brock was right in front of him.
I mean, so not that he has to live up to Brock Bowers' expectations, but it's like, damn, Georgia got Brock Bowers, and we haven't still seen Thomas Fedoni yet. But I'm excited to see him. I'm excited that he's healthy because I know he's wanted to be on the field, and uh,
I
there's
like the
so many things
confidence
can
too,
go
you know,
right
that
this year.
yeah, it is a lot of what ifs, and I hate when there's a lot of, you know, oh, if he can stay healthy and all that, but man, he looks confident and he
He's
looks
big.
good. He looks good. He's big and fast, and he looks like the guy that I was excited. You know, I was over the moon when they got him, and that even though he caught one pass, I probably watched that tape over that Twitter video like 15 times. You know, even though it was just literally like him catching one seam pass, I just like for a tight end, like my God, he just has some natural ability. So I hope everything holds up because he's going to be like Jeff. I think Jeff Sims' favorite targets are going to be Thomas Fedoni and Billy Sims.
So what's the deal with Gilbert's waiver? I haven't been following that. Is it
I
still in limbo?
I think it is. I'm guessing it's going to get approved because I think part of it has to do, you know, not that Georgia has like the final say on it, but I think if the previous school is like in favor of it, I think that that can help. And it seems like, from all accounts, everything I've read, like everybody at Georgia loved Gilbert and his time there, and like they only want him to succeed. I think Kirby Smart has said positive things about him since he left, so I don't feel like there's any bad feelings. They just have an incredible
Yeah,
tight end room there. So
yeah.
I feel like I feel like it's going to happen. You know, we'll see if not, but it just really I would be surprised if it didn't. Although the NCAA did make some changes where they said like they're not gonna. It's only for specific set of guidelines, but I still feel like Gilbert's going to be able to play this season. I hope for him because it just seems like that's going to be penalizing a kid and for what, you know what I mean? Like for what reason? I mean, yeah, he's transferred a few times, but it's not like he's played, he's clearly had some issues that have prevented him from getting on the field. And so I feel like from the NCAA's perspective, and what's best for the student athlete, it's not like he's just racking up 500-yard seasons and going for like the biggest paycheck wherever, whatever school will
Yeah.
take him. So I feel like this is a case where like legitimately this kid deserves a chance this year to play.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I mean, a combo of a healthy Gilbert and Fedoni. I mean, man,
He's a
that's exciting.
monster.
Yeah, he is a
It
monster.
it is exciting.
It looks like a
Um,
grown man among boys, both of them. I mean, we can, brag on Thomas Fedoni, and people can rag on Thomas Fedoni for his injury history, but there's no doubt he's worked hard in the weight room this offseason. I mean,
yeah,
just in comparison to what he looked like last year and now, like, man, he's bulked up.
he has for sure. So to wrap it up here, let's touch on some baseball with the Big Ten baseball tournament in Omaha. The Huskers, rallied yesterday. They were trailing by Rutgers by 3 runs, got a big home run. Were able to win 9-7, and that first win is really important in this tournament in the way that the bracket sets up. Instead of because basically if you lose that first game, you got to win 5 straight. You got to win 5 straight games to win the Big Ten tournament. Now Nebraska's playing Maryland today, which I think the last time we played Maryland, they swept us, at their place. Nebraska's won 5 in a row now, though. And they've got, as good of offense as there is in the Big Ten. And Maryland has not done well in this tournament in the past. So we'll see what happens because it's like Maryland's already got, it's like, they know they're going to the NCAA baseball tournament. I know they want to win the Big Ten tournament, but Nebraska's like literally, if we don't win this tournament, like we're done. So there is that kind of aspect to it. But I think they're playing tonight. I want to say 6 p.m. Central Time. I
Yeah, I
could be
believe so.
wrong.
I saw the bracket yesterday, but I believe it's 6 p.m.
So this is a huge game because if they win this game, basically whoever out of Nebraska and Maryland, whoever wins this game is going to have the inside track to the championship game because the other team's going to have to come through the losers part of that bracket and basically beat that team twice. So if Nebraska loses this game, they're going to have to come back and beat the winner of Michigan State or Rutgers. Then they would have to beat Maryland twice to get to the championship game. So they would have to win 4 straight games if they lost today to make it or to get to the NCAA tournament.
That would not be an easy road. So here's to hoping they win today, and here's
Yeah.
to hoping that the pitching is a little bit better. I mean, we've seen it all season. The offense has been fantastic. The pitching has been very up and down. So, I mean, I'm hoping that the pitching can hold it together and that the offense can have another big day.
Yeah, tonight's going to be fun though because I feel like in Omaha, the fans are going to be there. Hopefully, they'll give them a boost, and if they win this game, I really feel like I feel like that they have a very good chance of winning this tournament if they win this game tonight. That's the other side of the bracket is obviously still tough. Indiana and Iowa are over there, but I feel like if they can get past Maryland, I think Maryland's the best team. And if you put yourself in a position where Maryland has to beat you twice to get in the championship game, that's a tall order, in Omaha. So hopefully the Huskers can deliver tonight because if not, then it's going to be a long road to get to that title game.
Yeah, and I think this would be a nice kind of reminder that anything can happen in the postseason, and this team has the ability to get hot very quickly. They also have the ability to get cold very quickly. So we'll see which one shows up tonight. And I think as long as the bats keep swinging well, then we have a chance. I mean, the bats have kept us in many games this season, and I wouldn't expect tonight to be any different.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, it's got to be the bats got to deliver it. They've got some incredible hitters, so hopefully they will deliver on that. We should another thing, there should be I would think an announcement with Keisei Tominaga, at some point here in the next week, with the NBA draft kind of deadline. That's June 1st, so we've got to be hearing something by Wednesday. So I mean, any day now we should hear that Keisei's coming back to Nebraska for next year.
Which would excite me a bunch, especially when you talk about all the new transfers we've added, some really good pieces, plus Casey. Like, yes, please.
Yeah, there's a lot to be excited about with football, basketball, and maybe even baseball if we can get a win tonight. So make sure that you guys, hit the subscribe button that you don't miss it. Any of our future videos and podcasts. Hit the like button. Get to the comment section. Let us know what you think about Danny Dimes coming to Nebraska or Carter Nelson, any of these other, recruitments or, anything else that you would like us to talk about. And check out HuskerBigRed.com too. We have tons of great content, recruiting stuff and basically everything to keep you up to date with the Nebraska Cornhuskers. So as always, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.